Every city or town has its own share of urban legends. Where I grew up, there was a park with two small hills that kids played on all the time. The urban legend behind those hills was that there was this kid who got into all sorts of bad stuff. One day, the spirits sought to make things right, so they caught the kid, cut him in half, then buried his body in the park. The two hills are said to mark the two areas in which his body was buried. What does this have to do with gaming? Well, when I was growing up, the big urban legend at that time was that Chun-Li from Street Fighter 2 could attack by throwing her bracelets. I even have a close friend who swears he saw it happen. Naturally, my brother, my other friends, and myself, we spent a lot of time and a lot of quarters trying to figure out how to get Chun-Li to throw her bracelets. Was the motion like Guile's Sonic Boom? Was it like Ryu's Hadouken? Could it have been done once a round or maybe once a match? Did it have to be done at a certain time during the match? We tried as many things as we could think of. None of it ever worked. It wasn't until Capcom released Street Fighter 2 Hyper Fighting when I finally got to see Chun-Li throw a projectile. It wasn't her bracelet, but it was close enough. Then, in the arcade version of Street Fighter the movie, you can execute a move to get Chun-Li to throw her bracelets. Another urban legend I heard was that there was a video game where you get to play as Fidel Castro. Now, growing up, we were taught that Castro was the bad guy, so an official video game where you get to play as Fidel Castro was something definitely unique and would be interesting to try out. Turns out this urban legend is true. The game where you can play as Fidel Castro is Guerrilla War. Guerrilla War is a fun co-op game that's a spiritual successor to SNK's Ikari Warriors series of games. It's basically a top-down run-and-gun shoot-'em-up where your job is to kill everything that moves and then rescue the hostages that you come across. Similar to the Ikari Warriors series of games, you have the ability to shoot in 8 directions. You definitely need this ability as enemies will attack you from all sides. Though it's not explicitly stated in the US version of the instruction manual, Player 1 is supposed to be Che Guevara, and Player 2 is supposed to be Fidel Castro. Furthermore, the Japanese version of the game is titled Guevara, for Che Guevara, of course. I really appreciate how SNK improved the gameplay over the years. Even though the base gameplay is similar to the earlier Ikari Warriors series of games, the improved responsiveness and overall gameplay mechanics seems to be much more smoother in Guerrilla War. If you don't believe me, go back and play the NES versions of Ikari Warriors or Ikari Warriors 2 Victory Road. Then play this game. The older games feel sluggish in comparison, like your characters are running underwater. Here's something pretty funny. The art design for the extra life item kinda looks like Terrence and Phillip from South Park. Really, the only gripe I have about Guerrilla War is that it carries forward the NES tradition of having to walk towards your enemies in order to shoot at them. Granted, it's probably due to the programmers only having the directional pad and the A and B buttons on the NES controller to work with. Unfortunately, this adds an extra layer of difficulty to the game as you're forced to walk towards the people who are trying to shoot at you, setting you up for a few cheap deaths. You may not realize it, but almost all of the NES run-and-gun shoot-'em-ups with top-down perspective are like that. The most classic example I can think of is Commando. But there are other examples, such as Heavy Barrel, Die Hard, and then this god-awful game. If only they could have figured out how to implement controls like in Robotron, Or Total Carnage, where you can walk in any of the 8 directions while having the option to shoot in any of the 8 directions. Now, there's a run and gun shoot 'em up for the Sega Master System that does let you shoot forwards while walking backwards. That game is Rambo First Blood Part 2, also known as Secret Command in other parts of the world. First Blood Part 2 feels like it's the Master System version of Ikari Warriors. The game plops you in a jungle with the goal of destroying everything. Even though the game does let you shoot forwards while walking backwards, you're still limited to only doing this while shooting upwards. You can't walk to your left while shooting to your right, or vice versa. Now you might be thinking to yourself, wait a minute, what about that first Ikari Warriors game for the NES? When you jump into the tank, can't you shoot forwards while driving backwards? Well, yes you can. When you're in the tank, you can use the A button to turn the turret and the B button to shoot. This lets you shoot in one direction while driving in the other, a definite plus. However, it's like SNK decided this would make the game too easy, so they booby-trapped the tank. In order to get out of the tank, you hit the A button, then you very quickly hit the B button. But if you forget the order like I do, you may hit the B button, then hit the A button. If you do that, you'll self-destruct, blow up the tank, and kill yourself. Now this game, right below Guerrilla War in the magazine, they do let you shoot while moving backwards. It's called Vindicators. It's basically a co-op tank shoot 'em up game where you have to fight your way through different levels spread across the galaxy. Naturally, your job is to destroy everything while closely managing your fuel tank. Run out of fuel, and it's game over. Though some will find Vindicators boring, repetitive, and filled with dated graphics, I think that if you play it with the same mindset as you would the Ikari Warriors series of games, then you're bound to have fun. It also helps if you're playing with another human being as well. Just stay away from those higher levels because they'll just piss you off. I'm actually very fond of the controls for Vindicators. It's literally a tank game with tank controls. The controls remind me of 2 classic games which I like. The first is Resident Evil for the PS1. Look at that glorious tank controls. It just screams PS1 classic.
That was too close. You were almost a Jill sandwich.
You're right.
The second is Combat for the Atari 2600. Combat is an old school 1v1 PvP game. It's you against another human being in an enclosed arena. You can do battle with tanks or planes. Now, while the graphics on Combat may not be anything special to look at, the gameplay itself is fun. Assuming, of course, you have a friend to play against. Otherwise, you'll be like me, asking my son if he wants to play a few rounds. My son's response was that Combat is so old, he's pretty sure dinosaurs made that game.